Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Today, I am going to talk about Wednesday, January the 18th, 2023. Today, I'm going to talk about a couple of interviews that I did. Found some very important information about the companies, and also I've got some other companies that I'm working on interviews for. And so I'm going to get right into that. The first company I'm going to talk about is, or an interview that I'm going to talk about from a couple of days ago or yesterday was the story at Dynasty Gold. Dynasty recently became a sponsor of my website, and very impressed with what they have going on. What they're looking at, I'm just going to share my screen here. What Dynasty is looking at is at their Thundercloud project. They recently had excellent results out that included very high grade gold on 3 drill holes. Their O2 hole hit 3 meters of 43 grams of gold. Their O3 hole hit 246 grams of gold, and their O4 hole hit 25 grams of gold. Let's put things into context here. It's the Thundercloud project in Ontario. They acquired 100% of this project from Teck back in 2021. Bit about the project overview. It's located in a greenstone belt. These are very old rocks. Some of the key kinds of deposits that come out of them are orogenic gold systems, and I think that they're onto one. Just to put that into context, Fosterville in Australia had been in mining for several years in the near surface orogenic gold system. And then the Swan Zone was found at depth, extremely high grades, with very low costs of production, high margins. When it was mined by Kirkland Lake, it made Kirkland Lake a free cash flowing machine. The stock performed extremely well, and ultimately led to them being bought out. And that's the nature of these orogenic gold systems. They can be company makers. And I think that Dynasty is onto one with that kind of potential, but still remains to have a very low valuation. This is a little bit about the geology. There's Dryden, there's Goliath, there's the greenstones. These are your old rocks that are very important in an orogenic gold system. Here's an important map as well. I'm going to show you in a moment the Google Earth, where I've done some homework, and some of the key things you'll notice here are the structure, this big structure. These cracks in the earth are very important to orogenic gold systems. They are the deep crustal cracks that allow the gold-bearing fluids to make their way up to surface. There's one at the northern edge of their claims, and there's this second one that's quite interesting because, as you can see here, it comes right through their project, but in sort of the central part of their project, it's displaced quite significantly. And if you, inside of here, where it's displaced, by the way, is where they've recently had those spectacular results. It's also where there's a convergence of several rock packages, and the gold is found along the contacts of those gold. So you've got the right kind of plumbing system in the faulting. You've got the right kind of rock packages where these fluids can make their way up. It's a complex system, which is exactly what you want to see in an orogenic gold system. So now I'm going to go stop my share screen for a moment, and now I'll bring up my old friend Google Earth. I think this is a fantastic tool for those that are to do homework. And so I'm zooming into the Thundercloud Bonanza hit that they made. And as I zoom out here, you'll be able to see some important things. One, that it's in close proximity to the town of Dryden. I'm not showing where Dryden, oh, there it is. So here's Dryden, here's the highway, and here's where they made that high grade and bonanza grades intersections. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. And what you can see here is a package of lakes. And these are the representation of that northern fault. Along here is where you see the southern fault. In between here and here is where the claims are. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit tighter. There's also evidence of another fault coming up through here. And right in here is where that convergence of all of the geological rock units are located. And no wonder, it's also where they found the bonanza grade gold. I'm going to go off a share screen because I want to show you in a basic sense the distribution of that high grade gold is very important in an orogenic gold system, and it's what's got me so excited about what they're doing. In their news release, they put out the coordinates of where the drill holes were located, the direction that they were drilling in, and the dip of the holes. So what you can do with that information is then you look at, okay, so they had one drill hole going this in the southern direction. They had another hole going in this direction and another hole going in this direction. So you've got a central hole, which is where they hit that bonanza grades of 1.5 meters of 246 grams of gold. And then to the east of, or to the west of that is where they hit the 3 meters of 43 grams, and to the east of that the 1.5 meters of 25 grams. Now, that's the nature of these kind of orogenic gold systems. They tend to be very high grade, but the veins are narrow. That's the nature of an orogenic gold system. So then I looked at the distribution of the gold inside of the drill cores. And I'm seeing a pretty interesting group or dots, if you will, of that high grade, and it seems to be hanging together. So what I mean by that is the western hole hit the high grade at about 145 meters down hole. Then the central hole hit the bonanza grades of 246 grams of gold at over 1.5 meters at about 178 meters. And then the eastern hole hit the high grade at 193 meters. So what you're basically seeing is that these dots are starting to connect into a interesting zone. It's wide open up, and it's wide open to follow it deeper. Now, the deeper component is very exciting to me because these orogenic gold systems, there's cracks in the earth, these big faults that allow the gold-bearing fluids to make their way closer to surface. And what happens in these kind of systems is as you get deeper into the system, you're getting closer to the heat engine of the mineralizing system. And so often what you'll see happen is as you get deeper into the system, the grades get higher and higher and higher. But I would point out that even really close to surface, they're already finding jewelry box hits of bonanza and high-grade gold. In the context of exploring for something like that, for example, the Swan Zone at Fosterville was down about 750 meters. So they had to drill very deep to get into that jewelry box that made for very low cost and high grades and high margins. I think that they're at that seminal moment, really close to surface in the evolution of drilling for a orogenic gold high grade system. And another nice thing about finding it at that spot, that close to surface, is that you can you don't have to drill super deep holes to keep following it. And as you follow these dots that are seem to be connected into the same zone, you get a better understanding and predictability of where to find more of that high grade. So taking all of that into context, you've got the right structural story. You've got the right geological rock units for an orogenic gold discovery. And most importantly, they're already finding extreme high grade close to surface, and the dots are already pointing in an exciting direction for this company. Then when you consider that the company only has a $10 million valuation, is also very exciting. I'm just going to bring up their stock chart here. Just give me a moment. I'll share the screen again. And here is I'm going to pull up the Dynasty stock chart. And as you can see here, when they announced the results, the stock just went parabolic. It traded aggressively above its 50-day moving average, aggressively above its 200-day moving average. It's only a day away from a golden cross. It is trading aggressively above its 200-day and 50-day moving averages. This story is just starting to get out there. It's a brand new discovery of extreme high-grade gold. I like that it's pointing towards all the right things in an orogenic gold system, and yet they only have a $10 million valuation. I think this is a tremendous opportunity, sort of a swing for the fences type of opportunity for a company that's looking at a new discovery of an impressive orogenic gold system with extreme high grade right at surface or near surface. Another catalyst that I think is very bullish for the company is that we're getting a much stronger market for gold. And I think that that's going to bring a lot of new investors. And this is the kind of story that I think that new investors that like exploration stories are going to get attracted to. As you can see here with gold, it recently went through a golden cross. The trajectory of the 50-day moving average is extremely bullish. It is now trading aggressively above the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving averages, which are about, let's say, 1,790. And gold is right now trading at over $1,900 an ounce. So it's, you know, 100 and some, over 10% above the 50-day and the 200-day. So as more investors are coming into the exploration space, I think Dynasty is a wonderful opportunity for investors that want exposure to a new high-grade gold discovery in an orogenic gold system that has two exciting elements to it. It has the near surface, which would be similar to the Fosterville mine that was in production for a couple of decades near surface. And it also has that Swan Zone element, which, by the way, is not very not very deep compared to the Swan Zone at Fosterville. So it's got a lot of exciting characteristics. Yesterday, I had a great interview with their key geologist and the CEO of the company. And what stood out to me a few things stood out to me. Roman is an inductee into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame in 2009. He's been around the business for a long time. He's a very methodical thinker when it comes into these kind of opportunities. And they got a great guy sort of leading the team on the geological front. And you can rest assured that he knows what he's doing and doing things in a methodical way. Ivy, who is the CEO, she also had a lot of great information to contribute to the conversation that we had yesterday. And I invite you to check out that interview. You can find it in two places: on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News. Just search YouTube for Rocks and Stocks News, and you'll find that interview and my other interviews and sector reports. And then you can also find it on my Substack, which is rocksandstocks.substack.com. And that will give you a leg up on learning more about this company. And I think they've got a great news flow ahead of them that will lead them to be a much bigger valuation company. Okay, so the other company I talked about, I'm going to bring up the copper chart because this company has found a very exciting copper VMS system in the Bathurst Mining Camp. It's 9 Mile Metals is the company. Bathurst Mining Camp is one of the most important top 3 jurisdictions in the world for VMS gold or systems, deposits, and big mines. So they're in a great area. But here I wanted to talk briefly about copper. Copper is following a similar path to gold. Started to break out in November, traded and is only a few days away from a golden cross. It's trading aggressively above the 50-day moving average and the 200-day moving average. And as I mentioned, it's about to go through a golden cross. And so let's take a look at 9 Mile's share while I'm talking about the interview that I did with the management yesterday. As you can see, in late 2021, it went through a golden cross. Throughout 2022, the 200-day moving average was in a bullish trajectory, as was the 50-day moving average. and the 50-day moving average stayed significantly above that 200-day moving average throughout 2022. A particular note here was this big breakout that happened right around the time that they found their what's called the 9-mile Brook lens. This lens of massive sulfides has very high, was thick and had very high grade copper, also zinc, lead, silver, and gold. So it's a very exciting new discovery. What's even more exciting to me is that when you get a 10-meter thick lens of massive sulfides, it tells you a lot about the potential of the source of where that massive sulfides came from. These are volcanogenic events. So volcanoes come up carrying massive sulfides. And in this case, they had bonanza grades of copper and also excellent grades of zinc, lead, silver, and gold. So it's a polymetallic system. And so I think they're onto something very serious at their 9-mile brook. Wide open to find the source of that lens. The size and the grades of metals in that lens is indicative of the potential of the source of where that lens came from. And what it's indicating is that that source should be big and very high grade. As you follow these systems deeper, you're getting closer to the heat engine. And as you get closer to the heat engine, you're often going to find higher grades and a bigger ore body. But what they've already found in the lens deposit is that, again, that it's got thick intersections of high grade and some very extreme high grade copper, which is very exciting because there's not a lot of good copper stories out there. And especially in an elephant country region known as the Bathurst Mining Camp, where big deposits are found and long life mines are found. And so that's a very exciting situation. But then also at their California Lake project, they found massive sulfides, again with zinc and lead, as well as silver, gold, and copper. The zonation of grades in these massive sulfides are generally what you're going to see is, as you're at the top of the system, you're going to see a zinc and silver zone. And as you get deeper and closer to the source, the heat engine, you're going to find copper and gold. And that's the kind of model that I think they're finding at the California Lake, which is about 20 kilometers from the 9-mile Brook lens. Also in the interview that, again, you can find on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News, or you can find on my Substack at rocksandstocks.substack.com. They were very kind to spend their geologist and their CEO was very kind to spend a good amount of time with me. And they shared some really important information in that they brought up the 3D models of the model of the geophysics. And what that is showing is that they have a very important target to drill to find what potentially could be the source of the 9-mile Brook lens. But then in close proximity to the 9-mile Brook lens, it looks like there's other very high priority targets that could lead to more discovery of lenses and volcanogenic massive sulfide deposits of size. It's a very exciting area where they're let me just bring up let me stop sharing for a moment here. I'll get back on Google Earth, and let's go to the to zoom over to New Brunswick. And what I've highlighted here is a series of this is the granddaddy of the camp, Brunswick 12. Over 100 million tons of massive sulfides was mined there, very profitably. And by the way, when zinc prices were a lot lower than they are today, then Brunswick 6 was an important mine. Heath Steel was an important mine. And as you can see, this is about a 15-mile radius of the 9-mile lens where they found that high grade. I can point out a few things that I saw that confirm my analysis of the structures. In the geophysical models that they talked about, you can see some, this is an important structural corridor here. And right beside the lens, there's a hinge that you can see in the geophysics right about here in that rock package. They've now identified another big geophysical anomaly that comes here. In fact, there's a quite a significant group of geophysical anomalies coming along here. And so this, and by the way, they're drilling right now around that 9-mile lens. That the latest drill campaign started in December. They're chasing after a group of geophysical targets that you can see on the 3D model that they showed in the interview I did with them yesterday. And right in around here is just chock-a-block full of geophysical anomalies that look very exciting. I'm going to zoom out again. You go 20 kilometers over here, and that's where they found the California Lake VMS occurrences. And what's interesting about both of these areas is what they've intersected so far is the vertical extent. Oh my gosh, I've been talking away here, and I don't know if I had it on share screen. Let me get the share screen up there again. Sorry about that. There we go. So let me get back here. Brunswick 12 is up here. Brunswick 6 is here. Heath Steel is down here. This is the lens. There's a key structure that you can see shows up beautifully in the geophysics here. As I mentioned, right about here is where the structure has a hinge to it. And you can see that beautifully in the geophysics. Over here, they've got another big target. Up in here, they've got some other lens type targets. Right in here is where they're drilling that. They'll drill that hinge. It's just chock-a-block full with geophysical anomalies there, and that's important because these VMS deposits come in clusters. Where you find one, you often find more. And they certainly have the geophysical anomalies to suggest that they will find more. And over here, they found the California Lake VMS occurrence in several holes. What's important to note about both the 9-mile lens and the California Lake VMS is that what you're seeing in their drilling so far is the furthest extent from the source of these VMS occurrences. Yet at the furthest extent, you're already into very high-grade material. And so that leaves both of these zones open for to search for the source of what they're finding near and at surface, and is also very indicative of the potential to find high grade and big VMS deposits. So I'm very excited about what they have found already. And then I really recommend you to go to my YouTube or my Substack and have a watch of the video interview that we did, because the modeling that they're doing in 3 dimensions is of the geophysics is very exciting. And I would also add that the company that's doing that geophysical work is a company called EarthX. And EarthX is one of these big data companies that uses artificial intelligence and algorithms to filter out the noise, the geophysical noise, and then vector into where you should find massive sulfide occurrences. And it's worked beautifully at the 9 Mile Brook Lens, also worked beautifully at California Lake. And in the 3D models, you can see that they have just many, many targets to drill. So this is sometimes I think investors get way too wrapped up in the day-to-day fluctuations of a stock, and that makes for emotional trading. What the big picture story here for me is that you've got a little company with less than a $20 million valuation. They have a lot of ground in a very important VMS mining camp where there's lots of elephant deposits and mines, and they're finding new occurrences of massive sulfides. They're in the very early days, but everything is pointing towards them being a swing for the fences kind of company with a high probability to hit it out of the park. And that's what's important, not the day-to-day fluctuations in the stock price. It's understanding the big picture. And I think you can do that by seeing the interviews, because this company is a sponsor of my website. So I'm able to do several interviews with the company. And at this stage in the game, I think it's important for investors to be focused on doing their homework, understanding the story, and understanding the value proposition and the chance to hit it out of the park. And everything is pointing towards that being where the company is heading. So that's what you want to, in this space, this exploration space, companies can be fairly illiquid. So when they're illiquid, they can have big fluctuations on a day-to-day basis. And that can lead to emotional trading for investors that are gaining their confidence or lack thereof based on the day-to-day fluctuations in the stock price. But what I think is important is to stay focused on the big picture. Do your homework, understand what you're investing in, have a reasonable timeline, and give them a time for them to go out there and do the work needed to make important discoveries. And the reason that they deserve that opportunity is, again, they're an elephant country. They're finding new massive sulfide occurrences. Those sulfide occurrences at the very tops of the system are showing excellent potential to find bigger and higher grade as you follow these systems down. So go check out that interview. Okay, so now I'm going to give you some heads up. I'm working on some interviews. I've got BlackRock Silver has just put out some news in the last couple of days that I'm really excited about. At their Silver Cloud project, they made a very high grade, bonanza grade discovery of high grade gold and silver. And in these high grade systems, sometimes you have to do what's called metallic screening. So they crush the rock down and they then put it through a metallic screen. And that screen, by the way, it's more representative of a basic assaying because you're using more material, which gives you a better representation of the grade when you do metallic screening. So after they announced the bonanza hits, they had metallic screening done on the hits, and the grade increased and because it's you're using more of a representative sample to do your assaying with metallic screening. I think it's much more representative of the realistic grade potential. And at Silver Cloud, they've got the start of an extremely exciting project of an epithermal vein discovery with high grade that they've all likely already drilled into the heat, the boiling zone of an epithermal vein system. That's a very important point in the exploration of an epithermal vein system. And I think you're going to see a lot of news come out of that project. But secondly, why I think they're a deep value play, and I also picked them as a tax loss selling stock. Let me go back and pull up the stock charts here and show you a little bit of what. First of all, the most important thing is I believe that this is a deep value play based on the resource of high-grade silver that they've already shown at Tonopah. Secondly, they've significantly expanded the footprint beyond the resource to almost twice, or maybe even a little bit more, of what they have in the resource. So they've got a lot of news pending from their Tonopah project. I think it's got the room to get a lot bigger. I like the focus of expanding along strike, but then I've also talked to Andrew Pollard in an interview late in 2022 about the work that they're doing, and he highlighted some important information. He talked about Silvercrest, which is also an epithermal vein system, that when they put out their maiden resource at Silvercrest, it had it was around the same size in ounces of silver, but the grade at BlackRock is actually superior, higher than what the maiden resource of Silvercrest has. And then Silvercrest, after that maiden resource, kept on drilling, kept on showing a big mine, funded that mine, built that mine, and in November put that mine into production. What's very exciting about that system is that they're mining silver at a grade or at a cost of about $6.88 an ounce, and they're mining at about a grade of 700 grams per ton of silver. Just a cash-making machine. And everything is pointing to me that what BlackRock has at Tonopah is following the same path to success. So what I mean by that is I think that they have a high potential for a low-cost, high-grade, cash-making machine of a mine of the future. Yet they have a very modest valuation relative to the quality of what they have at Tonopah and also at the emerging excitement out of Silver Cloud. So I've reached out to Andrew Pollard to set up an interview to talk about the metallic screening work they did and hopefully to give us an update on how things are going at Tonopah. So stay tuned for that. Timberline in Nevada, in close proximity to Eureka, had some results out recently. I'm working on getting an interview with their CEO. What really excites me about that project is not so much the known resource that they have. They're expanding that known resource, and as they do, they're understanding better that the rock packages are all pointing to the east. The structural story is all pointing to the east. And immediately to the east of that resource and expansion drilling that they do, they have this massive geophysical anomaly. And I'm really excited about the prospect of them getting to drill that IP anomaly. I guess I should pull up their stock chart here. Sorry. So there's Timberline. Okay, and so as they get closer, or everything is pointing them to keep going deeper and deeper, more towards the east, towards this big geophysical anomaly. And what I think is happening here is that geophysical anomaly is the heat engine that brought the gold mineralization to this resource by way of following the structures, the cracks in the earth, and the contacts of rock packages to create this, to find this resource. But I'm really excited about that IP anomaly. Another thing that I'm really excited about is their potential to find CRDs on the project. They're in a camp where 3 companies to their immediate north have found exceptional CRDs. These CRDs have high grades of silver, lead, and zinc, but then they also have an overprint of extremely high-grade gold. Collectively, if you look at the value of the metals in the rock, you're talking about thousands of dollars per ton of in situ metals values in the rock. I would also point out that at Timberline has one of the largest land packages in that camp, and there has been historical mining in that on their ground for CRD deposits. So not only do they have this gold resource that is pointing towards a big geophysical anomaly, which is likely the heat engine, they've also got, they're wide open for CRD exploration. So this is a heck of a 1-2 punch in an area that's becoming one of the most important exploration camps inside of Nevada. And they're finding rock values that are maybe some of the best that you're going to find not only in Nevada, but worldwide. So Timberline is right in the heart of that camp, and I'm working to get an interview together with them. Another company that had news out today is a company called Firefox. I did an interview with their chairman in late 2022, and then I made them one of my picks for my tax loss selling picks. As you can see here, the stock was trading down here, and coming into the early part of trading in 2022 or 2023, it has blasted off. The stock is now trading well above its 50-day moving average and also well above its 200-day moving average. And the trajectory of the 50-day moving average looks like it's going to get very bullish and take them through a golden cross and much higher. They just had some news out today that caught my attention. And I'm working on getting an interview together with them to discuss that news and dig deeper into that news. But I like what I see. They're in Finland. There's been a lot of success in Finland on the exploration front. It's a very mining-friendly jurisdiction, and this is a very exciting area to be involved with, especially when you're getting very exciting assay results of gold from your drilling fairly close to surface. And so I'm working on an interview with them. Another one that I'm working on an interview with is Goliath, GOT. Let me bring that stock chart up. There you go, Goliath. As you can see, Goliath got just punished recently. And it's surprising because they had excellent results out. And they've got a very impressive project. And what I'm lining up for Friday is an interview with their CEO as well as their key geologists. And we're going to dig deep into what they've already found, which looks like a series of stacked zones that are all pointing towards some important structural corridors. And I think ultimately that they've got a multi-million ounce target on their hands with an exciting structural story. And I don't think that they're very well understood yet. And that's why I want to bring them to my audience to do an initial interview, to introduce the company to my audience and speak with their key technical people and leadership to dig deeper into what they have. I'm very excited about what they have. I think the stock is very oversold here and offers an excellent opportunity for investors that like exploration stories. And I'm not going to reveal the name of another company that I'm working on for Friday, because I'm going to use that interview on Friday to introduce them as a new sponsor of my shows. What that means is that we're going to be able to do a series of interviews as they have news out. They recently had very good news out that I'm quite excited about, which is why I invited them to be a sponsor of my shows. And so stay tuned for that. We've got a new name, new sponsor, and we'll have a good interview on Friday for that company. So today I just wanted to talk about some of the shows that interviews that I've done, some of the upcoming interviews that I'm working on. These aren't the only companies that I'm working on interviews. I've got some other ones that I think I'll be interviewing very soon, possibly this week, or likely next week. And on the big picture, as I talked about earlier with gold, I see that we're coming into a much more bullish market for gold stocks, for silver stocks, for copper stocks, and that's what I focus on. I'm also very bullish on lithium stocks, so I'm trying to put out a lot of content these days, because I find that many of my peers, because 2022 was a challenging market and a lot of their picks didn't do very well, they're sort of turtling and they're afraid to come out and talk very much. Yet there's a big audience, a growing audience that is hungry for content. So that's creating a heck of an opportunity for me. I'm also very proud of the picks that I've made and the sponsors that I have, because several of those have power charts ahead of the more bullish trend for gold, silver, copper stocks. And the reason for that is these companies aren't going into that turtle mode. They're aggressively working on their projects. They have good assets that are undervalued. They're eager to tell their stories. And that's a recipe to be a leader. And I'm very happy to say that And you don't need me to say it, just go do your homework on my picks and look at their stock charts, and you'll see that several of my sponsors have power charts. Several of them have power charts in the making. A couple of them are undervalued. And a similar story to those that aren't my sponsors, but are key picks. Several of those, and this is all happening while we're emerging out of a difficult 2022 and pointing towards a very bullish 2023. So I would say that several of my sponsors and picks are leaders in the transition as things get more bullish, and will continue to be leaders because they're aggressively working on their projects, and they're eager to tell their stories. And that's, I think, a recipe to be a leader, and what investors want to look at. Those companies that are pulling in their horns and afraid to tell their stories, and are in turtle mode, are going to be the followers, not the leaders. And you want to be investing in the leaders in the transition to a more bullish market. And I don't curate my interviews and my reports. Everything is out there for people to see. You can find it on my YouTube channel, as I mentioned, at Rocks and Stocks News on YouTube, and in my Substack reports at rocksandstocks.substack.com. As always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisors, and I really emphasize that homework part because it makes you you understand more about the companies you're invested in. If you're understanding more about the companies you're invested in, you're likely to make more logical decisions with a reasonable time frame for them to deliver on the fundamental, deliver on the quality of the projects. And it also helps you to avoid emotional trading based on fluctuations in day-to-day fluctuations in stock prices in fairly illiquid companies that can be bounced around pretty aggressively. And doing that, you get whipsawed, and you're selling on the high, buying on the high, selling on the low, getting all depressed because of the fluctuations. And you should be focusing on the big picture, because that's what the most successful investors that I've seen in this sector, that I got started in 1993, have common characteristics. They don't get too wrapped up on the day-to-day fluctuations in the stock prices. They understand the companies that they own. They understand the work that they're doing to unlock shareholder value, and they have reasonable time frames for the companies to deliver on their potential. That, my friends, is a recipe for success and what to stay away from. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.